Good evening. I'm Jill Williams, Director of Clark Center NYC. Welcome to our third salon to celebrate Expressions, Black Lives Matter. This evening, we'll focus again on the brilliant dancer, teacher, choreographer, total artist, Elio Pomare, and the effect he had on the artists who worked with him. Clark Center is honored to present this evening, as Elio had many connections to Clark Center. He taught there, he had a company there, and served as a panelist for the new choreographer's concerts. Elio Pomare was a genius. There seemed to be no end to his inspiration. He used history, great literature, visual arts, domestic life, social issues, a wide range of musical genres, and just beauty itself. This evening, we can only begin to share the depth and breadth of Elio's works and the ways he affected his dancers, demanding they dig deep into their subjects. You'll hear from many of these dancers and see short clips of his ballets. Elizabeth Dalman met Elio in Europe in the 60s, where he created his company. When she told Elio she wanted to work with him, he asked her, "Do you want to be a dancer or an artist?" She told him artist. That was the answer he wanted to hear. In this film clip that we're about to see, you'll hear Elizabeth in her own words and watch Elio dancing in one of his masterpieces, a solo from Blues for the Jungle.
It had stirred something inside of me. Remembering this performance, I went on a search for modern dance teachers. My search took me to the Folkwangschule in Germany, which was then under the direction of Kurt Jooss. There I met Elio Pomare, a black American choreographer who was a visiting student at the school. When I saw him dance, I knew I had found the dance I had been looking for. This was a great turning point in my life.
In a minute, you'll hear directly from Elizabeth Dalman and other artists who work with Elio. They all speak from their hearts. But first, we're happy to have Diedra Harris-Kelley with us again this evening as she speaks with the members of the Pomare family. Welcome, Diedra.
Thank you, Jill. I'm so excited to be here again because we just scratched the surface and it feels like we'll just be scratching some more tonight. We have so much video clips and we're going to hear from the dancers. So I'm really excited to be here as part of the Clark Center's tribute to Elio Pomare. We're going to start off with a clip from a documentary by Whitney Hunter, who created the film for the induction of Elio Pomare into the Dance Museum in Sarasota. And so we'll start with that so we can hear from or watch Elio himself.
I created a body of work which came out of a very significant part of Black American history, the civil rights movement, how it developed, and I think my work is among the art, which is a result and a reflection of that period in history.
Thank you for that. First up, I want to introduce Elizabeth Cameron Dalman. She is the speaker that we heard first, talking about her experience working with Elio. Elizabeth is an OAM, a Medal of the Order of Australia, PhD, and has been described as the high priestess of Australian dance. She established the Maramoo Creative Arts Center near Gundur 30 years ago, and 56 years ago, she founded and was the first artistic director of the Australian Dance Theatre. Elizabeth has been celebrating contemporary dance ever since. She tours as an actor, dancer, and most recently with Michael Keegan Dolan's award-winning Swan Lake Loch Niachla production in Ireland. We're gonna ask Elizabeth to pronounce that again when she speaks. In Denmark, the UK, Germany, Australia, Russia, Canada, and America. In the late 1950s and early 1960s, she danced and taught in Holland, and between 1962 and 63 with the Elio Pomare Modern Dance Company. Subsequently, Dalman appeared with the Pomare Company in New York and in concerts for new choreographers in New York in 1966 and 1968. Please, Elizabeth, welcome.
Thank you, Diedra, and hello to everyone, the wonderful Pomare family. It's an honor to be with you today from down under in Australia. Yes, I met Elio. I was probably 26 years old and he was 23. We were both at the Folkwangschule in Germany. And I saw him dance that first piece that you showed. And as I said on that clip, it totally changed my life. Because Elio, when he was dancing, he touched my soul deeply. And so I became an ardent follower of him. We had a little group at the Folkwangschule. We used to meet every day after school and work with Elio. But after about 8 months, we left the Folkwangschule. And because I'd lived and worked in Holland, I said, let's come to Holland. Let's rent a place in Amsterdam, which we did. We all lived together. So it was a very immersive experience for about 3 years. And because I could speak Dutch a little bit, I became the manager of the company. And I managed to get some teaching work. So we had showings in art galleries and alternative spaces. But then our main performance was in the Theatre de la Mar. I think it was 1962 when we did that. And of course, it was a total stir for the dance circles in Holland. We were pioneering modern dance throughout Holland in those 3 years. And at that time, Elio was a huge mentor for me. He introduced me to the Martha Graham and the Doris Humphrey Limon techniques. And we talked for hours about the Louis Horst craft of choreography. And then I loved his classes as well in African dance because we were doing a program at the Tropical Museum about how African dance and African culture was influencing American modern art, and in particular, the modern dance. So it was an enormous gift to be working with him at that time. What a creative mind he had. And of course, I was thrilled to be working there because he was working out his own dance technique and developing his choreography. In fact, he started to create little cameos that were later developed into the Blues for the Jungle. He created 2 solos for me, and that I remember most. I mean, he created several more, but the most important was Spiritual, which became I Am a Witness in Blues for the Jungle. And then in 1966, he created a Jinn Woman Distress.
Right. We saw a video. We saw a little picture here, didn't we, of that? What picture are we looking at now?
This is from Hex. He taught me Hex when I was in New York as well. And I performed that many, many times all around the world. But the other very important ones, which I probably have performed 1,000 times or more, was the Jinn Woman Distress. And in 1966, both Carol and I performed it in the same program at the Black Choreographers Concert, because Elio wanted to show both the white and the black rendition of it. And that was an extraordinary experience. I'll never forget that concert. And then he was also incredibly generous, because he gifted me a lot of his repertoire, which I learned and wrote copious notes for, and then brought back to Australia and taught the dancers in Australian Dance Theatre. I founded the company in 1965 and was the director for 10 years. And we carried many of Elio's works, like Night Spell, Grizzly Bear, 3 Faces of Noon, which he made for Jennifer Barry, Serendipity and Uptight. And then when he came to Australia in 1972 with his company, he was a feature artist and company of the Adelaide Festival of Arts. And during that time, he created a new work called Limousine for Janice.
Oh,
this
okay.
Is about Janis Joplin.
Oh.
This is interesting because Madame Tyrel's son, Rock Lee, was in Australian Dance Theatre at the time. And when he went back to Taiwan, he raved about Elio's artistry. And so much later down the track, Elio was invited in 2003 to Taiwan, and both he and I were guest choreographers with Madame Tsai for the Grace Shiau Dance Theatre.
Yes.
And from that time on, it was planned that Elio's works would be shown regularly.
Yes.
And so that's where I met Marshall.
Yeah. We have a wonderful clip coming up towards the end. One of the reflections is from that Grace, presentation in Taiwan. But Elizabeth, before we bring Marshall in, can you tell us what we were looking at? It was a piece of paper with a summary on it, I believe, from Jinn Woman Distress. Is that what we were looking at?
Yes, it was a review of Clive Barnes about the 1966 Black Choreographers Concert, where he mentions about Carol and me, and how it was really interesting to see the two of us perform that. And I think he makes a comment about Elio was capable of choreographing emotions.
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. And again, before we bring Marshall in, I just want to emphasize that you are calling in from a faraway place. And what time is it there, and how are you doing?
I'm all right. It's about 8:45 in the morning, but it's winter time, so it's really hard to get up in the freezing cold as well.
Well, thank you so much for joining.
Without my coffee.
Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, we'll talk with you again a little later, but I want to bring in someone who you've collaborated with, is Marshall Roumain, native of Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and choreographer, dancer, educator, and actor. And at the age of 15, he was making his debut with the Chuck Davis Company. And at 17, he was licensed to teach and dance by the New York City Board of Education. Since that time, he has performed as a soloist with the Elio Pomare Dance Company, the Fred Benjamin Dance Company, Alvin Ailey Repertory Dance Theater, the Jose Limon Dance Company, the Kazuko Hirabashi Dance Company Dance Theater, Contemporary Dance System, the Joan Miller Dance Players, and the Forces of Nature Dance Company. Welcome, Marshall.
Hello, hello, hello.
You're also the you served as artistic director of the Alpha Omega Theatrical Dance Company.
I was. Yes. Enrique Cruz de Jesus, where my baby is now, and that is now running the company. Okay. You know, we stand on people's shoulders.
Yes.
We pass the legacy to the babies.
Right. And you served as assistant to both Elio and Jeffrey Holder. So I want to hear what that was like. And you performed extensively on Broadway. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing with Elio's ballets.
Well, yes, I was lucky. It's all because of Elio. Mm-hmm. Elio pushed me in a sense where educationally I had to find a voice. Mm-hmm. And what he did, what Elio did, he was to introduce me to all the techniques that were happening at the time. Mm-hmm. Starting from Baba Chuck Davis to making sure that I got into Juilliard and to learn from the masters, and then continue. That was Elio's push for me, mm-hmm. because Elio was very personal in educationing his students. Mm-hmm. He let me go. That the thing, he let me spread my wings, right, to do Broadway as much as I need. I mean, after 12 Broadway shows, then dance with the major companies from Ailey to Graham to Kazuko and the whole thing. I don't think there was a master that let their babies fly as much.
Right, right. You talked a little bit about, we're going to look at a clip from Junkie, but you talked a little bit about his style of teaching and how he would get you into character. Can you say a little bit about that before we watch the clip?
Yes, he took me out. He took me out one night. I'm sorry. I'm saying things I shouldn't say.
Oh, okay.
He took me to a bar. And it was an S&M bar. Mm-hmm. And I had to seduce. I had to seduce a person, but he was there watching the whole time. I was protected, and that I knew. And then when he saw that it was successful, then he came back to me and said, that's okay. Then when we came on stage, he said, okay, remember, when you get on that stage, you make the woman wet, then the men wet. And that was him teaching me method acting.
Right.
And which later on, I had to go and follow up in his teachings. Right. Because then that what made me a great actor, a great performer, and that got me jobs many ways.
Yes, yes. Well, let's watch the clip from Junkie.
Oh my God!
Do we have that ready? Wow, Marshall, great work.
Yes.
How does that feel to watch that?
I am just without words, because he worked with me so hard on it.
Yes, yes.
Because that was my payment to because then I was artistic director of Alpha Omega.
Okay.
And that was, and I wanted to bring that into Alpha, and that was my pay. I didn't have the money, so Elio, that was my payment to Elio to allow the ballet to perform for Alpha. Again, we're passing the legacy to our babies, which is our culture, and that we hopefully will continue to do.
Right. And you were a kind of muse, and we have another muse of Elio's, Dyane, that's going to come on, Dyane Harvey, right?
Great lady.
Maybe I can have Dyane join us first before I introduce her, and you guys can talk a little bit about collaborating. Dyane, do we have Dyane with us?
Hey.
Hi.
Hey,
how are you?
Welcome. Greetings.
I'm so glad I made it in.
I know, we're glad too.
It was quite a struggle, boy.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's okay. That's
Many
Elio having
years.
fun. That's all.
That's
Many
right.
years,
Yeah.
we collaborated and helped each other spiritually, mentally, in order to create roles.
Yeah, we had each other's backs.
Yeah, now how did you intersect? Like what years were you sort of crossing paths and working with Elio together?
From my very beginning, I joined in 69. I had just graduated from high school and came to New York on a scholarship. Thank goodness for Roberta Pixar.
Yes.
She
Great girl.
led me to Elio and introduced me to Elio. I had one quote unquote audition rehearsal for 3 hours with him. The first time ever working with him, ever meeting him. 3 hours. It was unbelievable. At the end of the 3 hours, I was whipped, I was worn out, I was done. And I said to him, so what does this mean? Am I in your company? Are you gonna watch me some more? I don't know. I didn't know what was going on, And he said, yes, come back tomorrow night.
And we have to say how Roberta was instrumental.
Absolutely.
All our intertwining into the Pomare family.
Absolutely.
She was phenomenal.
Yeah,
what was her
she's
role?
Definitely responsible for me joining. She was a member of the company, and a very, very astute actress, very astute and very sensitive, and would really help coach us, privately, never in front of Elio, because that was his thing to do with us. But I can always remember being able to count on her to talk me through certain things and talk me through building my confidence and building my
the dramatic intensity that we needed at the time.
Yeah, this is she knew how to speak to us. She knew how to speak, or she knew how to speak to me. We became very good friends after that.
And we're still good friends.
Yeah, we still are.
Oh, that's fabulous. All right, Dyane, when I want to give you a proper introduction, you were a founding member and assistant director for the Abdel R. Salim of Forces of Nature Dance Theater Company.
Salam,
of Forces of Nature Dance Company. Dance Theater Company.
Yes.
A 2017 Bessie awardee and 2019 Bessie nominee, she shared life stories in the Oral History Project and the Dance Historian is in at the Lincoln Center Library Jerome Robbins Dance Division, having performed as a concert dance soloist nationally and internationally, on and off Broadway and film. She's also a professor of dance and humanities at both Princeton and Hofstra universities, where she has introduced courses that inspire significant student response. Under the tutelage of Elio Pomare, her understanding and application of principles and lessons she shared have had a profound effect on her performative and creative artistic expression. She's a featured artist in Ntozake Shange's posthumous Black dance memoir, Dance We Do. Her article, Making Movement as an Act of Listening, Writing with the Muse, an analysis of the process of improvisation to Shange's poetry, has been published by the College Language Association Journal, special issue in honor of Ntozake Shange. Most recently, she was invited to join the advisory board of the American Dance Guild and has also served as movement director, choreographer for Shakespeare and Company, the Classical Stage Company, Blackberry Productions, the Acting Company, NYU's Graduate Acting Program, Ramapo College, and the University of Florida at Gainesville. You're very busy. And I love how at the end of your bio, you said, forever grateful for those who came before. Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashe. Thank you for joining us, and continue to tell us a little bit more about what it was like to work with Elio.
Oh, I'm really, really happy to be able to share the incredible experiences that helped shape me and that I know many, many other dancers have gone through. But I think what's important is that Elio would meet each dancer wherever they were within their understanding of their own bodies. Right. So when I first came to Elio, I really was a ballet dancer. I wanted to be a ballerina. That didn't work out. Coming from Schenectady, New York, it was before, Black women and men were able to wear brown shoes and brown tights and look seamless in their body wear. And I shifted to modern dance during my final year of high school. I got bitten by the ailey bug, and I really wanted to be an ailey dancer. And luckily, I had the opportunity to continue a scholarship that I was given upstate New York, and came to New York City to train in modern dance, a dance form that used both Graham and ballet. So this became an easy ride into Elio's language. Well, easy is not quite the right word, but a more comfortable ride. And as I said, the first time I ever encountered Elio was, again, through Roberta, was this weird audition rehearsal. And I was learning the choreography for what we call the House of Bernarda Alba, which is another masterpiece of his. But the name of it is Las Desenamoradas. So this was a deeply psychological piece, and I was just turning 18. And my thrust was, I just want to know how to move my body. I just want to move my body. I'm not thinking about what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about, is that foot pointed? How do I get that contraction happening? What's the shape? What's the line? And Elio's process is, but in order for me to be able to see that you are thinking, you have to think about something.
Right.
And so that process of, well, what are you thinking about, led me to ask him, well, what is this piece about?
Right.
Okay, so what is this piece about? Well, this piece is multi-layered, and there's a bunch of women, and they're fighting, and they're going on and on and on. And I was cast as the instigator of all the fights, and that's really not who I am as a person. So that was, just going through the exercise of learning how to program myself to be able to open up these doors and windows and closets and behind these curtains of my own existence in order to bring that to the work was the way we worked together.
So it was a very unique process.
It was unbelievably rich and layered and deep. It was really deep. It was really, really deep. Again, I'm from a small town upstate New York. I was not exposed to jazz music, really. I was, I focused, my lens was very narrow. And so Elio introduced me to Coltrane and Pharoah Sanders, and he lived below Cecil Taylor.
Oh, wow.
Initially, when we were first in his first rehearsal studio. So I would see this other little dude walking up the steps, and they would exchange pleasantries or snap on each other, and I would go, well, who is that? He said, oh, that's a pianist, Cecil Taylor. I'll play some of his music for you one day. And so he did that, and I was like, oh, okay, now I know Cecil. Okay, great. And so just the introduction to Black art, Black theater, psychology.
It was a whole graduate school.
It was, and it was, what was so terrible was at my senior year in high school, my mother said, well, I can't get you to go to Juilliard because they're not accepting students this year, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, that's fine, because I just want to go to New York and dance anyway. So I'm just going to do on-the-job training.
Right.
That's what I said to her. And she said, okay, well, we can make that happen. And so, I mean, luckily, again, I'm blessed with a very strong and flexible body.
Yeah.
And so I was blessed. I was lucky. But the Roots story is also very.
Yeah, we have a clip of Roots. Tell us a little bit about what we'll be watching.
Okay, so the Roots story is interesting in that I believe it was, the ideas for it were in probably the 1970s. He choreographed the piece first on Ibaye, Lillian Olubayo Coleman. She and I were not quite, she was a little bit older than I. So she had already been in the company a little bit longer than I. And so this was this new 15-minute solo for her. And I was really happy for her. However, when I saw it, I said to myself, wow, I would sure like to get my fingers in that piece.
Wow.
In my head, I would never say that, right? But I was thinking it. And maybe about 3 weeks later, Lillian was asked to join the Graham Company. So that meant that there was going to be a vacancy for that piece, and he had just finished it. So he was starting, to prep me to learn it. So when I came in the first day, he and Lillian were talking. She was pissed off. She was not happy. And I looked at her and she looked at me and she kind of shrugged her shoulders and put her hand on her hip and walked out the room. And I said, so what's going on? He said, well, she's leaving. So just get dressed, let's go. So I never got a chance to learn it from her, but I got a chance to learn it from him, so.
Okay. All right. In the clip that we're seeing, though, there are you're in several different costumes, but I understand this is one dance.
Yeah, there are 3 sections. The first section, I like to call it the African royalty. So you see the beautiful headpiece and the robes and all of that. And so it makes this statement that African people were royal, are royal, and have an understanding of how to behave and how to care for and be leaders, okay? The second section is in white. And I see that, and there's a transition where the dancer takes the robe off, removes the crown, and is wearing a gele or a head wrap. And so that I see as kind of the middle passage, enslaved section, strange fruit. Okay, so we're dealing with the lynchings and all of that. The last section I call the Black Power section. And so the dancer is wearing red and green. Of course, the body is black, so is the red, black, and green. And just one other really important thing is Elio made all of those costumes.
Wow.
Including the headpiece. Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, can we see the clip now?
Black body swinging in the southern breeze. Strange dripping from the poplar tree. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was deaf, and the Word was nigger, and the Word was deaf to all niggers, and the Word was deaf to all light, and the Word was deaf to all peace, be still. The Genesis was life, the Genesis was death. In the Genesis of death was the Genesis of war. Be still, peace, be still.
Wow, Dyane, that's really powerful. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, yeah. I think the other thing that's important, and that's help you segue into your next panelist, is that the black and white footage actually was maybe second or third time that I ever performed it. And it was at a concert called You and the Ladies, and it was produced by John Parks.
Right.
The color is probably 10 years later down the road. And so that piece over the years became synonymous with both me and with Elio. So whenever you heard Roots, and it was also before the film came out.
Oh, okay.
And Alex Haley's book as well. So, you know, the universe was just kind of twirling around and moving ideas and people and yeah.
Well, on that note, just really quickly, if in that clip, the span of that clip, you can see the changes that may have, or the changes in you.
Yeah.
What would you say was maybe the biggest change that you can see in those clips, watching them now?
I feel in watching the black and white that my movement was less finished, more raw, closer to the abandonment that a young dancer would have. And I feel like the color, I'm more of a seasoned artist who kind of is comfortable in the tool and a little bit more in control of it. And so shaping and shading
Right.
Ideas and thoughts as they are emerging in the mind.
Mhm.
So I'm in more control of my body, much more control.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, maybe we can bring John in before I go through his introduction, and we could talk about the piece that you mentioned. John, are you there with us? John Parks?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, John. Welcome,
Hi.
welcome. Before I
Welcome.
introduce you, we have Dyane here. If you guys want to just talk about that dance, I would love to know more about it.
Well, it was, as Dyane mentioned, it was an evening, it was a show that I did at the Bijou Theater, which was really a small Broadway theater. We rehearsed in the evening because we were actually doing the Wiz during the time. We were doing the Wiz on Broadway, so the only time that we had to rehearse would be after the show. So
you both were doing the Wiz?
Yes.
Okay.
And so the only time we had to rehearse was be after the show. So we rehearsed sometimes until that was after dinner and after chilling out a little bit.
It was like a Sunday, right? So that was the Sunday show.
Right. Mm-hmm. And but it was really wonderful. It was called An Evening with You and the Ladies in Dance and Poetry, and really iconic performers. And Elio was gracious enough to allow me to work with Dyane and use his piece, which is a tour de force. 15 minutes on stage as a solo is a tour de force that only a few people that I know have been successful in doing on stage. And Dyane was magnificent in it. Not only in that piece, but in other works that we did, choreographed by other people and as myself. It was just a really great experience. We wanted to do something that honored women and give a voice to dance and poetry, and Dyane just magnificent in it. And I have worked with Dyane on a number of occasions, and we have kind of crossed paths, and it's always been stellar and wonderful.
Fabulous.
I reflect you. I receive that.
Well, John, let me give you a proper introduction here. Okay, native of New York City, began his dance studies at age 5. After completing formal studies at the Mary Bruce Dance School, Sylvia Fort Dance Studio, High School of Performing Arts, Juilliard School of Music, Jacob Pillow Teachers Workshop, New Dance Group, Clark Center, and American Dance Festival. He trained and performed in the companies of Alvin Ailey, Anna Sokolow, Donald McHale, Jose Limon, Mary Anthony, Pearl Primus, Percival Ward, Elio Pomare, Ruth Courier, Rod Rogers, Sunak Lee, Louis Johnson, Martha Clarks, Baralundi Alatunji, Nina Papola. Okay, we're gonna have you, clean that up for me.
Right.
Joan Miller, June Dunbar, Chuck Davis. This is what happens when you have a long resume. Louis Hoving, Alfredo Carvino, Billy Kirpich, Norman Walker, and others. You served as assistant to the choreographer, dance captain, and performer in the 7 Tony Award-winning Broadway play, The Wiz. Before joining the Ailey Company, John Parks formed his own company entitled Movements Black Dance Repertory Theater, dedicated to the civil rights and Pan-African movements. John has performed, choreographed, directed, produced, and lectured throughout the United States, as well as Europe, Africa, and China. Since relocating to Tampa, Florida, and taking a teaching position at the University of South Florida, he has continued working with theater, dance, music, and local arts organizations. Presently, John has dedicated himself to promoting dance as a healing modality, working with the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine's International Arts and Mind Lab of the Brain Science Institute. How impressive, John. Really exciting combination of interest. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Here with us this evening. Tell us a little bit about your experience with Elio and what was unique about working with him.
Well, my experience is a little bit different because I worked with Elio as a dancer, but I can't really own the distinction of saying that I was in his company. A lot of the things that I did were that he mounted on me were solos that I performed in the company from time to time. And also he allowed me to perform some of the pieces outside of the company. I did a one-man show that kind of was throughout the South and throughout the United States for a while. And one of the pieces that Malcolm X that he allowed me to do was something that I performed quite often. I met Elio years, I think when he first came back from Europe. I used to teach at WNYC, which was in the municipal building, and that's WNYC is the radio station.
Yeah.
And it was held in the municipal building, and it was a studio that they allowed dance to take place. So I would teach there, and then one night, this gentleman came in and he introduced himself as Elio Pomare, and he said, "I used to teach here." And actually, I think I replaced him when he left to go to Europe. But of course, I knew his name. Of course, I knew his name because although he was abroad, Elio, the two people that he had gone to school with, Bill Luther and I'm trying to think of, and Dudley Williams, they all were colleagues together at the High School of Performing Arts, and I had known both of them, and they had talked quite fondly of the third person. The third person of the trilogy was Elio Pomare.
Okay.
And so I was awestruck with him. He was, as a choreographer, you could not play around. You had to go moment to moment to moment to moment. You had to know exactly what you were doing. And the things that I learned from him, I every day that I teach, I'm reminded of him because his words and his images come back to me, and I use them to communicate that and translate that to other people. And Diane was correct in saying that it is, you have to become the person. You have to become the dance. You are just a vessel, and you are channeling the movement through your body. So you had to know moment to moment what you're doing. And because at any moment Elio would say, "Well, what is that?" What are you doing with it? And you have to have a reason for what you're doing and why you're doing it. It was a tremendous experience, and it's something that I carry with me every single day that I teach, every single day that I choreograph. You also, I mean, Elio was, I shouldn't say was, because he's still with me.
Right.
He's still with me. He's present with me every moment that I go into the studio, at least every moment when I go into the studio, and a lot of times when I'm not. But because of other things, not only the choreography, not only his mentoring, but I mean, Dyane mentioned the costumes. He made costumes. He made costumes. What he did with a reel-to-reel tape recorder in and mixing music and sound was just stellar, was just genius.
Okay.
And splitting music up and editing music so that it's seamless. I don't know how he did it.
Right.
Or how he did it, but it was a master feat. So I really applaud everyone for convening and doing this tribute to Elio.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and we have quite a few other tributes that we have to plow through. I see that our time is running short, but we have a clip of the Malcolm piece. So we did want to play that. And then we'll play the remembrances from other dancers that we have pre-recorded. So thank you, John, but hold on, we're gonna bring you back later. Hopefully we're gonna get to some Q&A. So, but right now, let's run the clip.
I am not a racist in any form whatsoever. I don't believe in any form of racism. I don't believe in any form of discrimination or segregation. I believe in Islam. I'm a Muslim. People understand Arabic took the language away from it. So you call him the same guy. Your name, he calls the guy. Well, when they stop indicting us because of our color, that means we're indicted before we're born, which is the worst kind of crime that can be committed. And also in that tradition,
Wow, that was John Parks performing Malcolm by Elio Pomare. Thank you, John, for that. Next up, we're going to go through a series of pre-recorded tributes from dancers and people who have worked with Elio. I think first up, we have Robin Becker. We have that clip ready.
Elio Pomare was the most significant influence on my creative and professional life as a dancer. I was able to dance with Elio for 12 years. And then as I began to do my own choreography, I continued to work closely with Elio as my choreographic mentor, costume designer, and trusted friend, really through the end of his life. Most of the world knows Elio as this brilliant artist, often a rebel, often revolutionary, who made powerful social and political commentary through his work. But what many people don't know is about the other side of Elio, about a profoundly kind, generous, and caring human being. Elio really cared about each of his dancers. At age 18, I felt like I was swooped under his wing.
Next up, we have Lonnetta Gaines, who will talk a little bit about Festac, 1977 festival.
Greetings, everyone. I am Lonnetta Gaines, and I'm grateful for this opportunity. Thinking of Elio, the first thing that comes to mind is Elio's intent to develop us as artists. How many times did we hear Elio say, "Dancers bore me"? I'm interested in creating dance artists. Well, this message came home to me in a somewhat embarrassing experience. Elio's company was performing at Festac in Nigeria in 1977. What a wonderful time. And to make it richer, I was performing Elio's classic solo Hex, a dance which felt like it had originated in the soils of our African motherland. The subtitle of Hex is A Woman Possessed, and surprisingly for me, since this had never happened to me before, I demonstrated that subtitle at the end of the dance, quivering and shaking so much that my fellow dancers had to surround me with caring assurances to bring me back down to earth. This was not good. All this backstage drama made me miss a cue for the next dance. I knew I was due a lecture from Elio, and I got it, thankfully in private. Elio said to me, "Lonnetta, you are not a voodoo queen. You are an artist. You are not a voodoo queen. Your job is to create an experience for the audience, not to live it for yourself. Remember, you are an artist." That is a lesson I will never forget. Thank you, Elio.
Next up, we have Jaime Galindo, who was inspired and validated by Elio.
Hi, my name is Jaime Galindo. Elio, how can I express my gratitude to a man I cherish in 2 minutes? I shall try. 1991, maybe 92, we'd already lost 5 beautiful men. Craig, Stanley, Thomas, Andre, Ruben, and I felt Leroy too from Joan Miller, almost our sister company. I remember Elio screaming one day, "If I lose one more 20 or 30-year-old to an unknown illness, I'm going to kill someone." A strange place to start. But in retrospect, why would Elio be any different here when he saw what was happening than at any other time in his life? "Let's call it what it is," he said. "AIDS. It's a plague." I was a member of Elio's company off and on from 1986 to 2000. I say off and on because I was one of the few men who had AIDS and is here to tell the story. He even let me, actually encouraged me to perform when I had a PICC line in my arm to receive intravenous medicine. This story is not about me, but how Elio became my hero. Very few artists dared perform or even talk about the plague that was killing artists by the thousands. Hence the slogan of the time from ACT UP, "Silence equals death." His idea was to start the piece in the 14th century during the bubonic plague. It was ingenious. He made costumes, he always did. There was a slit in the sleeve and the legs. It gave the idea of flesh rotting or falling off of the body. By the end of the piece, we each individually changed to hospital gowns, some with IV poles. The last scene's in a psych ward. A woman singing "Happy Birthday" to me, slamming her hand into the cake and putting it into her face. Elio had seated me for the last scene in a chair, downstage, on downstage right. I'd objected at that time to thinking it was too minimal. I now know that having the skinny man trying to make it inch by inch speaks volumes. When we finished the piece, the overpacked house of the 92nd Street Y was silent. You could hear a pin drop. I thought they hated it. Then I heard a cry or two, actually the sound of tears. And then thundering applause that felt like it went on for an hour. Thank you, Elio, for being the first person to validate my experience and thousands of other men at that time. I love you forever.
Next up, we have Andrea Borak, and immediately following will be a clip of her performing Hopper by Elio Pomare.
Hello, my name's Andrea Borak, and I danced with the Elio Pomare Dance Company from 1977 to 1984. A wonderful time in my life. Exciting, beautiful dancers, wonderful choreography. To pick the most important thing about Elio for me personally was when he set the solo Hopper on me. He came into the studio and said, Andrea, I'm going to set a piece based on Edward Hopper paintings on you, and I was ecstatic. The first thing we did was we went to the Whitney on a little field trip and picked which paintings we were going to use, and we had a great time. We went back to the studio and we looked again, and he chose the paintings, and we began to work. And working with Elio was always collaborative. He would look at a dancer and he would say, movement was happening. He said, where does it want to go? Because the movement itself had texture and weight and rhythm, and so it might want to go someplace on one dancer and a different place on another. So he really looked at dancers. And that was such a thrill to work on Hopper, to work on each woman in the Hopper paintings, and to start with a very buttoned up, lonely lady looking out the window, and actually stripping, I did have clothes on at the end, but stripping down to that emptiness that he was able to capture. And it was just such a thrill to dance those women. It was, for me, it was just such a combination of the dance and theater and acting and everything. So for me, dancing Hopper was the greatest gift that anyone has given me in dance. And Elio, I miss him, I love him, he's my mentor. I think about him every day, and he makes every dancer better. He sees them and he works with them, and I miss him. That's all I can say. I could go on for hours, but 2 minutes is 2 minutes, and so it was nice to share a bit about him, how much I love him.
Wow. Next up, we have Maxine Steinman. I mean, Elio truly created a family. Not only was Maxine one of his dancers and assistants, but her husband worked with Elio creating masks for one of his last ballets. So we have Maxine speaking, and then followed immediately by a piece that she performs called Sunrise, Morning Without Sunrise.
Hi, my name is Maxine Steinman, and I danced with Elio Pomare for 12 years in 21 pieces. I would not be the artist I am today if it wasn't for Elio Pomare. He made a profound influence and impact in my life. He was very demanding, which was amazing because he made myself and everybody that worked with him step up to the plate, and we tapped into things that we never thought we would be able to do. He worked on theatricality and intense and beautiful movement. He wouldn't let you lift a finger without an intent. And sometimes he'd let you move, and then he would say, now drop your head back, lift your leg and turn. And he would take what you had to offer and mold you. And I felt like he molded me as an artist throughout all the years that I worked with him, with all the pieces that I worked with him. The first piece that I danced with Elio Pomare was called Morning Without Sunrise, and it was about the apartheid in South Africa. And I played the Diamond Eaters with Vincent Taylor. And we were like these lizard-like humans who represented the Dutch, who took the diamonds away from the South African people. And then there were Winnie and Nelson Mandela, played by Patti Page and Stanley Joseph, and we did these fierce duets and quartets, and they were phenomenal. At one point I was with Patti Page, and we were intertwined with our hair, and we were pulling and fighting. And another time, Elio gave me a huge rifle, and he said, I want you to have sex with this rifle on stage, or look like you're having sex with this rifle. I want you to put it between your legs and slither on it and roll on it. And he said much more vulgar words than that. If anybody knows Elio, you know what I mean. And he wanted me to do all these things with his rifle, and I was like, wow, it's just new to the company, and I had this great opportunity, and I embraced it with so much joy. I really had a great time working on this piece with Elio, and working with this rifle, and working with Patti and Stanley and Vincent, and with everybody else. And I even learned all the parts in the piece, because whenever we didn't work on duets and solos and quartets, I stepped in for anybody that was absent. So I learned every part of the piece. I knew all the counts, and so Elio had a nickname for me called the Countess.
Next up, we have Alfredo, her husband. And then immediately after that, you'll see a piece of wrists with masks, with Alfredo's masks.
Hi, I'm Alfredo Cardenas. You're at my studio in Ellenville, New York. I'm presently working on a bust of Elio Pomare, who I've known for many years through my association of my wife, Maxine Steinman, who danced with Elio for many years. As you can see, I've worked on the bust for a while now, because it's very hard to try to capture the spirit of an individual. It's easy to do the academic stuff, the musculature, the size of the skull, and all that stuff, but when it comes to spirit, it's a totally different thing. You want to catch the anima, the person himself, and he was so dynamic. I attended many performances. In fact, I had the opportunity of working with him on one of the performances. I made masks for the performance called Yerma, and that was a wonderful experience, because now the masks are in a museum in Sarasota, which I never would have guessed to this day that they would be. I just want to be thankful for having met the man and getting to know him, especially his cooking. I love that Caribbean cooking. Bye-bye, back to work.
Yes, wonderful. Next up, we're going to go straight to a quick tribute, Carl's tribute to Elio.
Hello, my name is Carl Paris. I danced with Elio Pomare during the early to mid 1970s. Before then, I had met Elio when, as a scholarship student at Mercer County Community College in New Jersey, I helped book the company. I had never seen a modern dance concert before then, so that event and the fact that I helped make it happen really changed my life. I especially remember wanting to do what those beautiful dancers did in Elio's stunning Las Desenamoradas. And I also remember the impact on the audience when Elio went running up and down the aisle throwing newspaper at folks at the end of his masterpiece, Blues for the Jungle. I remember thinking then how his work fit so well with the fire and the truths of James Baldwin and Richard Wright and Ralph Ellison. And I still think that way about him. So I want to express my gratitude for the time I've spent with Elio. Gratitude for helping me understand my own humanity and blackness, even as he was teaching me and choreographing on me. Gratitude for his intellectual power and his renowned intensity, for his uncompromising example as a warrior for social justice. Gratitude for exposing me to great dancers, great ideas, and wonderful experiences on and off stage. Gratitude for his friendship, his artistry, his extraordinary generosity, and many of you know that the man loved to cook for people. And finally, I'm grateful for the lasting legacy he has left for future generations, for those who preserve and restage his incredible works, and for those who learn about him in their studies and discover his unique contribution to the world. So thank you, Elio, and Ashe.
Thank you. Thank you for that. We just want to make a sort of just a note about how there are all of these folks wanting to preserve Elio's work and his legacy. There are companies in the US and worldwide who continue to do his work. So that we heard from all of these dancers and choreographers, know that this work is continuing. Next up, we have such a continuation in Grace Shiau.
In the spring of 2002, my sister Ondine and a group of our dancers visited Dr. Elizabeth Dalman's Minamu Creative Arts Center
in Kampala, Australia.
There, Liz introduced Ondine to Elio Pomare's body of work. Ondine had long been interested in Elio's dance and hoped to present his work to Taiwan. In 2004, Elio and his manager, Glenn Connor, finally came to Taipei. He was invited to create a dance about the life and achievements of Zheng Nanrong. Elio persevered, and the dance tableaus was created, leaving a powerful and monumental work for Taiwan's modern history. During his stay, Elio toured the island and performed tableaus along with works by Elizabeth Dalman and Martin Chai in 5 cities. Since then, Elio Pomare's legacy has been honored, and his work has been presented every year in Taipei as part of the Chai Ruiyue International Dance Festival. Elio is now considered one of Taiwan's cultural assets. Elio once said, Through his choreographies, he can transform a dancer into an artist. Before he passed away, he asked Marsha Roumain to come to Taiwan as artist director of the performances of his works. Marsha has certainly lived up to Elio's high expectations and has presented a multitude of Elio's dance each year for more than a decade. Under Marsha's guidance, many Taiwanese dancers have blossomed into outstanding artists, and Elio's dance works now have a home in Taiwan. For more than 20 years, the Cai Ruiyue Foundation has been committed to the reconstruction, preservation, and promotion of works by international icons of dance art. Every year, the Cai Ruiyue International Dance Festival invites choreographers and dancers from the United States, Japan, Australia, South Korea, and other countries to cooperate with Taiwanese dancers to reconstruct and present their choreographies. Artists and dancers have cooperated tirelessly over the years and have accumulated a large number of reconstructed and new dance works. Despite ethnic and cultural differences, years of working together has made us all old friends. The foundation is especially grateful to Elio for sharing his work with all of us. His dance leads us to explore the universal history of the human rights struggle. May we learn from his persistence and artistic excellence. And may we all continue the dance.
Beautiful, beautiful. If we can have all of our panelists return for a minute. Dyane, Marshall, John, are you there?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, great, great. Well, we are full. That was just, again, a scratching of the surface still. And we may need another program. We had one quick question from the audience asking Dyane and John Parks, do you remember Gail Turner from The Wiz as the Dorothy understudy? And this is from Gail Turner herself, I believe.
Yes, I do.
Absolutely.
That's a blast from the past.
Yeah, she's joining.
You were beautiful.
Us.
You were beautiful.
Absolutely. It was a joy.
That's beautiful. And then we have one correction that I'd want to make. I don't know if it was a mistake I made. A couple of people have mentioned the National Museum of Dance, which houses some of Elio's work. It's in Saratoga, New York, not Sarasota, which is in Florida. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Since
and we have the Cai Ruiyue Foundation in Taiwan.
Ah, yes, yes.
And we have to thank the Cai Ruiyue Foundation, and we have to thank Undine Chow, and also Undine and Grace Shiau for their consecutive work throughout the years.
Okay, all right. And we have
just the museum also houses, just so you know, a lot of the costumes and accessories and personal, some of the personal effects that Elio designed for us and created for all of us.
A lot of the costume and the guns and everything else are there.
All right. Well, there's a couple of questions about next steps. Like, how can we continue this legacy, and what are some of the next steps to preserving his work?
I need help on that point. You see, I have two legacies left to me, and I have John Miller and I have Elio, and they're both left to me, and I'm still trying to find a way to share it with a younger generation.
Well, what has been done is a couple of universities have been able to reconstruct the Bernarda Alba, the house of Bernarda Alba, Las Desenamoradas. I also went to Paris to reconstruct roots and heads on
you did a wonderful
foreign dancers. So the idea of continuing the reconstructions. I know Marshall went to Florida to work with John on Las Desenamoradas. So I think that is one of the easiest ways to keep the legacy growing and to keep the name on our lips, you know?
I think that we saw a lot of his works from a lot of points of view and very eclectic. And I think that the way to keep it alive is to employ his work and keep his works alive, and by reconstructing them. When Marshall came down, and I got some real great advice from Dyane as well, in terms of House of Bernarda Alba, and it was a challenge for my dancers, and they're still talking about it. It was a number of years ago, but it was a challenge for them to move that way and to move from the inside out and from the outside in. I think that's one of the legacies of Elio's work, and it needs to be continued.
Right. And someone suggested one way to continue this legacy is to make this recording available for public reference, which we will. We will be. And, I believe that this will be played on the YouTube channel of Harlem One Stop, and also on the website of the Clark Center Facebook page. The Clark Center Facebook and the YouTube. Yes, Marshall.
I am ready to share. I am open to share all of Elio's, all of John Miller's works. Just let me know, and I will make myself available to share with the babies.
And yes, and we will make that known. But what we're going to close off with, I think it was John or somebody was talking about the eclectic nature of Elio's work. We have a clip from Blues for the Jungle in Taiwan.
Yes.
So that is what we will close with. Thank you all very much.
That's a complete different culture that understands.
Yes.
And gives.
Yes. And I just want to say thank you to you all for joining us and sharing with us. This has been so much fun. I've learned a lot. And I know that our audience is enjoying it. We're getting lots of feedback coming through. But also a special thank you to Harlem One Stop and to Nadal Kanari for producing for us this evening. And of course, the Clark Center. I thank you for inviting me to participate. So
thank you,
everyone.
Thank you to you.
Diedra. Thank you, John.
Diedra.
Thank you, Marshall.
Thank you, Diedra, and thank you, Nadia.
Yes, thank you, Elizabeth. Yes, Diane, John, and Marshall.
You, my sister and Dr. Elizabeth.
Yes.
Thank you all.
So I think we can.
Thank you to all the Pomare family. That I have to give a thank you to all.
Children, close my dying eyes. now Jesus gonna make up my dying bed. Well, when I come to die, I don't want nobody to moan. Hey, gonna run my bedside children and you give that bell a call. Oh, now Jesus gonna make up my dying bed.